So Joshua's always had an unsteady gait, and we thought it was more hypermobile, which many children do have. Joshua's really struggled, never been able to learn to ride a bike because he's very unsteady on his gait. So I'd say that's the first symptom. We noticed as well Joshua with his ataxia, with his head dropping and going to pick a glass up, he was quite unsteady. So we go to see a consultant usually every 6 months. So we mentioned it to him and we showed him some videos of his head dropping and his hands. So they said they would keep an eye on that. It was kind of told me, it's ataxia, there are treatments out there are trials going on, but I wasn't really explained what ataxia was. It was kind of, you get your clinic letter, it's added on to another symptom within his Niemann-Pick, and it's go at home and kind of Google it type thing.
Ataxia is a combination of physical signs when patients' coordination, balance, and speech are affected to different degree. In the Niemann-Pick type C disease, it can also occur in combination with tremor or shakes, and also tone abnormalities. So sometimes the tone can be higher, so stronger than normal. It can be identified during the detailed neurological examination. So by physician, pediatrician, when the patient is examined in the clinic or on the ward. Specifically in Niemann-Pick type C disease, the obvious problems with balance, where the patients start staggering a little or falling, can be preceded with abnormalities with the gaze. So they find it more difficult to look up when they're asked to look up quickly. And that's the problem with the particularly upward gaze. And to some extent, this is also a sign of ataxia. So it's an abnormal coordination of the eye movements rather than the movements of the arms or speech.
I think it's more frustrating for Joshua. He's a 15-year-old boy trying to use his knife and fork. That can be quite frustrating. He tends to try to use his hands, but he gets embarrassed. It's more frustrating for him not being able to ride a bike. His sister's on a bike and he can't. So I think that frustrates him. But other than that, he just gets on with it. With the swallow issue as well, that's related to ataxia, that's frustrating because Joshua loves his food. So they're obviously the dietitian, he shoos them out of school when they come and say, right, we don't want you to eat this and this. So it's more frustration that it affects him rather than the ataxia itself. It's his brain and the frustration of what he has to go through, really.
Got it.
I think they just see ataxia perhaps when they're seeing head drops or not using his knife and fork, or I think a lot of people just put it down to it's Niemann-Pick disease. They don't see it as a different condition with that alongside it. So they don't really say too much more other than it's just Josh.
Yeah. On the whole, ataxia, or the problem with coordination, and dysarthria, problems with speech, are some of the commonest symptoms in Niemann-Pick type C disease. Unfortunately, there is very little that we medics can offer to help with ataxia. However, our teams, the speech and language therapists and occupational therapists, they can offer adjustments that will help patients in day-to-day life. And this is one of the reasons it's important to be identified.
We know Google is a big word, Google. You get the worst case scenarios. So I think having some sort of support group as well for parents with children with ataxia, because it affects other conditions too. I think parents can learn off other parents, so I think a support group would be good for that. And doctors just educating the parents a little bit more, and maybe the schools being educated on what ataxia is and how they can make it a little bit more comfortable for the child. So that would be my advice, really.
Yeah, definitely.
We take each day as it comes, so we try not to overthink things. So we would just carry on doing that, really, because if you kind of look too much into ataxia, you could drive yourself a bit mad. So every symptom we just take on the chin and just deal with it as it comes, really. Just to keep dancing and smiling and carrying on, really. He takes everything on the chin and just deals with it. So yeah, to keep on doing that.